I think for me personally, and I think most of our colleagues would agree, Maciej is a clear example of unlimited accomplishments, both in academic and professional field. And looking at his relatively young age, he has even long more way to go. So, Professor Maciej Kislowski receives his Master Law degree from Yale Law School, Master in Public Administration in Economics and Public Policy from Princeton University, Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs, and he holds MBA with distinction from INSEAD. He also holds PhD in law and MA with distinction from Warsaw University, and is currently completing another doctorate in legal science at Yale University School of Law. Besides his research interest, which includes theory of regulation and public management, he also has consulted many well-known public and not-for-profit organizations, including the Secretary General of the European Commission, Committee for Economic Development, Washington DC, and the offices of the President and Prime Minister of Poland. And as a teacher, I can witness it myself. He's really beloved by the students, and now you will have a chance to experience it yourself. Maciej, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So, why do you need a lawyer in a business school? Yes, well, you know, people who are. Let me open it. Oh, okay. So. You know, people, as you've seen, I am sort of a perpetual, I was sort of a perpetual student, and people ask me two questions. First of all, why on earth I would end up in a business school, in Budapest in particular, and second, you know, what kind of experiences from my past, you know, graduate background I focus on most importantly and try to sort of replicate in class. So, starting from the second question, I want to say that actually what my sort of broad multidisciplinary education gave me mostly is examples of how not to approach business-government interaction. So what I do in class is, in a sense, you know, it's a course that I would love to have had myself in, you know, any of the places I attended, but unfortunately didn't have. And the reason why I did not have it in any of the major educational institutions that I attended is that, you know, those sort of well-established, well-known, reputable institutions have this sort of idea of creating programs and focusing on research of the world as it should be, as opposed to the world as it is. And I think what's great about this place is that it's immersed in a context, social, political, economic, when you simply cannot escape the realities that the world that we have around us, the world that we will face as entrepreneurs, especially at the intersection of private sector and the political, you know, broadly conceived public regulatory sector, is actually very far from what we would like it to be. And the sooner we acknowledge that we are living in this highly imperfect world, the better and the more fun and intellectual benefit we can get from our research and from our teaching. So that's why I ended up here. I'm sort of a case study of what Mel was telling you about, you know, this place, you know, being totally independent of any government, of any public money, funded by, you know, an amazing, you know, philanthropist who like built the foundation of this place for endowment. But, you know, also gathering people who, like me, want to, you know, take the toolkit that we gain in, you know, good places where we got our, you know, doctoral and research education, and try to apply it to something that's real. Yes, I mean, to a place where the action is. And, you know, anybody who works here, who lives here, in this part of the world, knows that there is a lot of action at the, you know, borderline between entrepreneurship, private sector, businesses, and governments. And, you know, usually the word that describes these interactions, this borderline, this fence, is probably hell, yes? let's try to deal with it. And you know, it's interesting because even like reputable mainstream sources like McKinsey, you know, belatedly start to recognize this. Yes, I mean, this is like 3 weeks old, the news executive survey of McKinsey that essentially concludes, based on the interviews with top executives around the world, that governments and regulators are second only to customers in terms of their strategic importance for companies. So, you know, it is, you know, it is nice that those people are saying those things, but, you know, I would like to say, well, I've been, you know, telling this in my classroom for the last 3 years, yes? So it's not news for my students. But it's good that it's being recognized. So, you know, if we want to look at business-government interaction, if we want to look at government as potential, you know, as parts of the broader environment of business that impacts its competitive advantage, shall we, you know, use the concept of thinking about ideas such as public service, or civil virtue, or maybe common good? That's what you would hear in most of the institutions. Yes, you would, if you know, at my business and public policy course in the business school I graduated from, the idea was, you know, to describe what would be the ideal regulatory framework. What is it that we should expect the government, you know, to deliver? And that's a noble goal, yes? I mean, it's great to create those expectations among young people, future managers, that we will demand better from our government. Unfortunately, as many of you know very well, you know, it will take a very, very long time to see the world in which those words will describe the interactions between business and governments. I actually would say that the better words are probably bribes, are probably abuse of power. Think about retroactive taxation of bonuses in this very country. Incompetence. Ever, you know, interacted with administrative official to, you know, renew your driving license? Well, I guess you will see more of the incompetence than public service or civic virtue in these interactions, unfortunately. Yes, and unfortunately a lot of connections, yes? I mean, people who are the insiders as opposed to, you know, the rest. So, you know, welcome to the business school for the highly imperfect world. Yes, this is not a school that will, you know, try to picture this world of private jets and executive suites and you know, high-level meetings with, you know, the President of the United States. It is the school that will essentially try to prepare you for the Wild West you are going to encounter the day you are graduating. Because this is going to be a Wild West. And there are essentially two approaches to business education. One is to create a fiction that, you know, you will all end up, you know, you will leave the graduation party in a big limo and then board your private jet. And the other approach that we prefer is to teach you about how to survive in the world as it is. So, for the remainder of this talk, I want to give you a few examples, both in terms of my research of this highly imperfect world of business-government interaction and how it impacts the teaching that I deliver in the MBA program. So in terms of research, we actually set up a research center here that, you know, unlike many other centers on business and policy, tries to really focus on how to innovate in this highly flawed world of emerging, developing, transitional economies, which are very dynamic and interesting, but the public sector is sort of not catching up. So, you know, a few things about the research center. Well, the first thing is that, you know, it's not like a bunch of people who, you know, sit and theorize about, you know, some sort of abstract stuff. It is essentially a network of academics and practitioners. It is very important for us. Okay, Mel mentioned an important thing that we have a full-time research faculty here, but it does not mean that we create sort of a little ivory tower when we read, you know, abstract academic papers and don't care about how it works in practice. Actually, the way my research center works is that it seeks the interaction and, you know, at the very early stage, challenging the ideas that we generate with actual practitioners, yes? Private and public, we want to hear from the beast, yes? We want to hear from the government. We know that they are, you know, corrupt, incompetent, but it's still better to talk with them, yes? You better know your enemy very well. It's very multidisciplinary. We don't care about, you know, I'm political science, I am lawyer, I am this or that. You know what? That is all complete waste of time. We should focus on problems and then choose the right tools to solve them instead of, you know, focusing on our, you know, favorite discipline and then look for facts that will confirm our own theories. So yes, I mean, what I mentioned before, that this match between like the ambition to be a, you know, a world level research institution, but also locally relevant. Yes, the other thing that Mel already mentioned, which is great that he emphasized it, is that we are the school of innovation. We don't want to, you know, create another London Business School or another INSEAD here. We are creating something new. And yes, we are not worried about offending people. I mean, we are especially not worried about offending corrupt governments. You know, frankly, the reason why we are not worried about it is because of the amazing philanthropic contribution of George Soros, who essentially created this institution as a completely independent, you know, island of thought, of progressive thought. So you, Mel mentioned the movie that premiered, you know, an hour ago. It was a lot of fun. It is a story of a huge corruption scandal with actual names of actual politicians in it. We have a lot of international research projects, and yes, this is all relevant for classroom use. So how is it relevant? Let me give you a very quick example. So if we are talking about the practical, the day you graduate, yes, you may want to join a startup, you may want to establish your business. Well, there is you who is like full of ideas, full of potential. There are opportunities, you met people who have similarly interesting ideas. You want to start something new, and we want you to start something new, but unfortunately, before you can even start something new, there is a massive bureaucratic wall in front of you. Yes, the tax agency, the occupational safety agency, maybe, you know, you work in a regulated industry, so you will have financial regulator or this regulator. At the end of the day, even the fireman in the big helmet will come and say that your building is not, you know, does not adhere to proper standards, yes? So, in essence, there is a wall that separates you from your business objective, whatever it is. And, you know, what we believe is that part of destroying this wall, or, you know, making it a little shorter, is to give you knowledge, to give you tools to understand what's behind the wall. And actually, you know, to give you an example of what we would be doing in class, what is behind the wall is usually some sort of administrative agency. It is like some sort of bureaucratic organization. And you know what? It's even more concrete. Because actually, within this organization, there is some person. There will be a face that actually will be dealing with your case. Yes? So instead of a wall, now you have a concrete person. Yes? I mean, you know, you can imagine this. I mean, it maybe not, will not look like this, maybe will like, you know, wear like an old sweater or, you know, and jeans, and there will be, you know, you will visit them in their office, and there will be these little paprika strips on the, you know, little plate so that they can, you know, make their work a little more exciting. I mean, you can see the picture, yes, of a bureaucrat who will decide your case. Well, actually not quite. He will not decide your case. He will usually prepare your file for somebody else to decide. He is the face of the government. You will need to deal with him or her, but somebody else will be actually making the final determination. So now, anybody can tell me, do you think it's a good idea if, let's create a hypo. Let's imagine that I come to you and say, listen, this guy, the decision maker, is actually my good buddy. So, my suggestion is you actually don't even approach this guy, the usual official face of this agency at the lower level. You go straight to this guy. Anybody has a comment on this approach? Skipping this guy and going straight to the decision maker. What do you think? Good or bad idea?
Very good.
Why do you think it's a good idea?
You get the faster response.
Okay.
And that is your aim.
Okay. Any other suggestions or views?
Where in the world would you do that? So, I mean, it might be easier in Brazil than in the United States. And say, I don't think that. I think you should go about the rules. You should follow the rules. Because if you don't follow the rules, obviously.
Go ahead.
And if it's that complicated, many people try to cut.
Yeah.
But in an ideal, you were talking about an ideal world, I would follow the rules.
So we have two very different views, how untypical of this place. You know, there is one idea, of course go for the decision maker, forget the, you know, guy with paprika strips. And the other approach is, no, actually you should follow the rules. What about another strategy? You know, even if you contact this guy, it's still this guy who will actually deal with your file. Agreed, yes? Because the busy decision maker just signs the paper. So, you know, totally ignoring this guy and going straight to this guy creates an enemy. Yes? And it creates really a needless enemy, because you know what? There is a very, very easy way to have it both ways, which is you use your contact with the top decision maker, but you acknowledge, you show the respect to the desk level administrator, so that they feel actually, they even feel better because they know, you know, they know you have the connection. Everybody knows, yes? If you have it, if you use it, everybody in the agency knows you have it. So, you know, so they know you have a connection, and they are used to the fact that everybody who has connection just treats them as junk, yes? They just go straight to the decision maker. You will be the one person who will visit them and, you know, wish them happy birthday. Even though you perhaps don't need it. But now, you have two friends in the agency. Yes? And it took half an hour of a visit to the paprika guy. Yes? So this would be the best case scenario, of course. It assumes that you know the decision maker. But even if you do, you know, is it really that difficult to show this guy a little respect so that you don't have an enemy? Now, if you don't know the decision maker, well, there are still things that you can do to approach them. Yes? Well, yes, so that is the typical organizational thing. Yes? This guy will always have some sort of independence. That's why I said it's not the best idea to actually make an enemy out of him. But let's get to those things that can influence those guys. Yes? So, surprisingly enough for me, I would actually claim that sometimes law does influence decisions. Yes? Most often, probably, it's not that relevant, but actually, from time to time, bureaucrats make decisions according to the law. And I think that's why it is sometimes useful to use legal constraints, especially when the issue is clear-cut, and that then acting against the law will impose a cost on a bureaucrat. Organizational culture. This is not really my field, this is Zoltan's field, but you can use, that's why my course is after his course, because then you can use the tools that he will teach you about the organizational behavior to try to actually influence those guys here. Social network. I asked in one of my classes, how would you socialize with these guys? And it was an executive education class, so a lot of senior managers, and one guy raised his hand and said, you know what? That's really easy. You have all the money. So you throw a party, yes? I mean, you actually find somebody who actually sends their kids to the same school as this guy or this guy. Yes? I mean, if you start thinking about, this kind of approach, you realize that, this crude way of dealing with the world, yes, the world doesn't exist anymore. Yes, because of the knowledge you have, you are able to eliminate the world. And guess what? You are not paying a bribe, which is, by the way, still a crime, as far as I understand, even in Central Europe. So, in a sense, the conclusion would be bribery for me, apart from the ethical aspect, which is, a separate and though important consideration, bribery for me is, sort of a sign of intellectual laziness. It's like lack of sophistication. Because there are so many ways you can interact with, even with deeply flawed, corrupt, incompetent, abusive government without breaking the law. It's safer for you. It actually, does not create sort of an ethical tension within your organization. And you know what? I can tell you, it's bloody effective. So, well, hopefully to be continued next year. Thank you.